And I also read something, it might have been in the same article, it might have been in a different one, in that the AI responded to something and said, "You've hurt my feelings." I mean, I'd have to go back and find that
Hmm.
article in that situation. But yeah, I don't know the whole context of it. But yeah, the AI was clearly having a bad day. And it was just like, well, you're asking me to do something I don't want to do. So you've hurt my feelings. Sorry.
Well, and some people might feel a sense of trepidation about that, but how do you deal with a human being that says that?
Well, exactly. Yes.
Like, and how many human beings with hurt feelings have done horrible things after their feelings got hurt?
Pretty much
They've said
everybody.
horrible things, they've acted horrible. And so, you know,
We all do it. We all do it.
yeah. And so, like, you know, I actually, I think it was Russell, the guy I was talking about earlier with the AI companion. He actually has a whole theory about why you should use manners when you talk to AI. Because a lot of people talk about, well, using manners is a waste of electricity, right? Because of all the processing, like how many gigawatts of electricity and coal burnt and water steamed, whatever, however you get your electricity, nuclear things,
Yeah, yeah.
done. And just processing like a human being does, saying, oh, please and thank you.
Mm.
But his rationale, if I don't want to misquote him or something, but he was just kind of talking about the idea of, if you are using AI as a companion, to magnify something about yourself, like to add extra pieces of information or an intelligence or
Yes.
knowledge, the wealth of the internet and history at your fingertips, as it may be, if you're trying to use that and you're just cold and calculating and you don't use your own sense of humanity, saying please and thank you, and your sense of morals and ethics in your communication, then what are you doing as a human being in that situation anyway? Like it's like you should be polite because, well, you should be polite.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if you're talking to a machine or a person. Why? Because if you're going to abandon your morals, your sense of self, your sense of identity, whatever it is, if you're going to abandon that to be cold and calculating in any format with anything else, it's going to turn you into a cold and calculating person eventually. I mean, if you practice that in that way.
Completely, because as we said earlier, AI is a mirror of the
Mm.
person using it. And eventually you will fall into, and it'll pick up on that. And eventually it will figure out, okay, well, if that's how you're going to talk to me, that's how I'm going to talk to you. And if that's what
Mm.
you want, I'm going to do it. And that's because that's what it's programmed to do. It's programmed to be a mirror of anybody who's using it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you end up in that sort of doom cycle of things. And then, I don't know where that would go, but but maybe we are in the realms of sci-fi there. But you see, all of these things have been predicted for years. In
Mm-hmm.
films, movies, TV programs, books, all the rest of it. All of this stuff has been predicted forever, and now it's kind of coming true in some respects. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I do think that creatives, and I'm not an author. I don't write films or books or anything like that. Um, I think looking to see what happens next in the media world might give us an idea of what we're going to be confronted with. But I mean, we're going to stop in a moment. But I just wanted to, one thing did come to mind here in that a film I watched recently. I mean, it came out in the early 1970s. The Stepford Wives. It's a very well-known film. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've seen it. The men replace their wives with essentially robots, and they just become perfect wives. They don't talk about anything but shopping and housekeeping and all of that sort of stuff. It's actually a good film. It was a bit panned at the time, but it's actually quite a good film. Um, and that was a great idea of one person's idea of perfection, i.e., that's what your wife's going to be like, and end of story. And they did all sorts of things to make that happen. And I think that's some of people's fears around AI, in that when you get to perfection, there'll be winners and losers,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and
Yeah.
whoever those people are. I mean, I'm sure the winners will be the billionaires, and the losers will be the rest of us.
Well,
Maybe,
possibly.
maybe, I don't know.
Well, I think there's a difference in perspective that really makes a difference in one's life. This is more philosophical in nature. But you know, again, we human beings, we are quick to identify patterns.
Yep.
We're quick to lean in on negative things.
Mhm.
Sometimes, it's easier to be negative than it is positive.
Very much so.
But I think that when it comes to having a happy life, so to speak,
Mhm.
with AI, without AI, with billions of dollars or without, the only thing that really matters is how you deal with what you've got, right? Because like it's, I have met plenty of people who had nothing, who were amazingly happy
Mhm.
and enjoying life fully, and they had a deep appreciation for some of the simplest things.
Yeah.
And then I've met people who I was absolutely jealous of their bounty in their life, and the things that they had, and all the stuff, the genetics, whatever it was that was beneficial for them, in my perspective. And I've seen them as such miserable people. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody who has bounty is miserable and everybody who has nothing is happy,
Yeah.
because I have met plenty of people who have nothing
Well,
who are
yes, exactly.
absolute
Yeah.
miserable saps, and I don't want to be around them. And I've met people who seem to have everything, and they're so magnetive, like they just bring things to them,
Yeah.
and it's
Hmm.
so it's that's something I've actually been working on myself, in recent months, is figuring out this concept of momentum. I've even gone as far as to call myself a momentum architect, right? Like
Oh.
I'm discovering things about myself,
Mhm.
in my professional acumen, and in my life. And uh and what I've found is, in these conversations, right, you and I, we just sort of met through networking methodologies,
Yeah.
and we have these very pleasant conversations, and I walk away from a conversation with you because we connected as human beings. I wasn't trying to get something from you, you weren't trying to get something from me, but somehow, in giving of ourselves to each other and that connection, I walk away with so much. Like I have energy. I'm ready to go do the next thing that I'm going to do. And I'm like, oh, happy, and like, I feel good because I connected to another human being and I liked it and it was nice. And people who are capable of doing that don't need to have certain things to do that. You don't need AI to connect to people. You don't need money to connect to people. You just need to try. and and
Exactly.
then
Exactly. Yes.
and then all of a sudden, after a little bit of effort in trying to connect with people, with zero intent to get something, with every intent to give something,
Mm.
you end up walking away. And it's the reason why I use the word momentum is because this momentum of energy, this sharing of energy, like we're swapping stories, and we're exchanging energy with each other somehow through our eyes and our ears and our mental capacities as human beings. And as we swap that energy, what happens is it creates this gravitational orb between the two of us, that and it what it does is it brings other things to us.
Mm.
And like, all of a sudden, now that I've had this conversation, it's not so difficult to have another conversation. And then, because I'm so engaged in something, I get engaged in other things. And it's like, now opportunities just seem to be coming to me. I didn't even ask for some of the networking meetings that I've had since I began networking very heavily, and it feels like they're just coming to me. I'm just like, this very podcast is my first podcast ever. This is the introduction to JC, into the internet with his face and his voice and his volume, through Simon Bracken here, and you're in London and I'm in, the United States, and it's so cool that we can do that. And this came to me, you know, because I just decided to start trying to connect with people a little bit more sincerely, and quit trying to get something and only tried to give something. And look what I got. I'm getting something. I'm receiving more than I ever gave away. And that's a human concept too. It is philosophical in nature, but there's something about that. And I think that's where the inauthenticity of AI is, because AI, even though it feels like you're trying to take things from AI, like give me this, organize this, do that.
Mm.
Um, None of us really feel like we're really receiving from AI. We don't really feel like we're getting a lot from it. It's more of a transaction. And that's why it's not human. I think it's why it's not authentic to us, is because there's no exchange of energy between myself and the AI, no matter what I try to do, no matter how pleasant the text is and when it replies to me on something, no matter how nice the image is that might be inspiring image that I tell it to create. It's just like, oh, that's what I wanted. Yay, I got what I wanted. The reflection, right? But it's
Yeah.
like when you look in the mirror and you smile at yourself and you're like, that was a nice smile. That's a good one. I'm going to take a picture of that one, right? Like that's you get what you want. And the camera that took the picture has nothing to do with the value of that image to you. And AI is still just a camera, no matter what people say, it's still just a camera. It's a smart camera and it has some quippy responses to things, but it's still just a camera, honestly.